What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Home Built Workshop. But you may notice, we're not a Home Built Workshop. But where are we? Top secret location. Make sure you stick around. Hey, what's up, man? So we are here in Bernville, Pennsylvania at the shop of Mr. Eric Schaefer of Eric Schaefer Guitars. Hanging out with Eric Schaefer. How cool is that? Thanks for taking some time. Eric's going to give us a little bit of tour, kind of check the place out, maybe see some guitars, learn some things, and just have some fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Right on. Thanks for having us.
Let's go check it out.
Right on.
It's quite a mess right now because I've got a whole bunch of orders for Wengi that I'm resawing right now. I'm making just backs and sides endlessly out of these massive billets of Wengi that I got from Hearns. I get a lot of wood from Hearn Hardwoods. And I'm cutting up some redwood too. This stuff has a little bit of figure there.
Oh yeah.
You can see it more on, I have a bunch of, on the pieces after they're cut out. So I've been getting into resawing a lot lately. And I think what's encouraging for some people to talk about is just how basic and I guess crappy, for lack of a better word, my resawing capacity is. I have a 14-inch Craftsman bandsaw back here, but with some very careful tweaking on it and getting a good blade and this and that, you know, getting the setup just right, I can actually very efficiently cut out these super dense, super tall billets of Wengi.
Nice.
And so that's been working out really, really well. I do plan on getting a little bit nicer of a bandsaw to be able to be a little bit more efficient, and to get, you know, cleaner cuts. But honestly, you can do a lot with a, what did I spend, like $500 on this or something like that? I'm sure with inflation it's quite a bit more.
I know a bandsaw is definitely on my list. It's hard to fit it in there.
Oh, you don't have a bandsaw?
Well, I have a benchtop one.
Right.
But it only has like a 5-inch resaw.
Yeah. See, so, I mean, you can basically just do scroll work on a, I mean, for the most part on a benchtop.
Yeah.
So it becomes almost more like a scroll saw. But that's great that it's, yeah, if you get a bandsaw, you keep the small one, you keep a nice tiny blade on there for cutting out your backs and things like that and scroll work, and then you can set up the other one as a permanent resaw.
Resaw, yep.
Yeah. So once I get the next one, this will then become my medium bandsaw.
Yep, small, medium, and large.
Right, I've got the small one over there for the scroll work and cutting out tops and stuff like that. But then there's a lot of cross-cutting that you can do nice and quickly and easily with like a medium-sized blade on here.
Yep. What is that, a 3/4 on there right now?
This is a 5/8. Okay. But actually normally for resawing I keep a bigger blade, 3/4 to even 1 inch. Although I can't, I wouldn't do 1 inch on this small of a bandsaw. It doesn't really work. I do a 1 inch blade on the bandsaw that I use at the Fab Lab. So there's a workshop, whole nother story, but there's a workshop that I teach I'm now teaching at.
Oh wow.
In a limited capacity. I teach there a little bit, and they pay me, but they also give me access to all their equipment, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's way cool.
And so I'm kind of using that opportunity too to figure out what I want in a serious bandsaw and in a serious planer, so I can upgrade those items to really get into resawing. So some of the other stuff that I got in here, some of it's quite rudimentary, I guess you would say, cheap. I mean, the most laughable thing, I think, you know, I've been doing this for well over a decade at this point, and I still use this job site table saw, and honestly, it works fine.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten really good at supporting awkward things. That's the only downside not having like a true cabinet saw.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a
works
cabinet
great.
saw either. And yeah, you sometimes you got stuff teetering and supported and.
Yeah, there's like a whole skill to that. Obviously, if you're not good at that, it can actually get quite dangerous.
Yeah. Yep.
And sometimes, you know, you set up a thing as an outfeed table or something like that.
I know I end up doing
helps.
a lot of like sleds. You know, I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 different sleds, you know,
Okay.
rides in here
Yeah.
to kind of support things.
Yeah, it's funny. The only sled I use is for fret slotting, and that's this thing right here.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, check that out.
2 miter gauges.
For a little more stability, because that right hand,
Yep.
when you push on this side, you can flex it slightly and kind of,
That's a really good idea.
you know, ruin the accuracy of your cuts a little bit. So there's a little pin in here.
Yep.
And this is nothing, the pin part of it is nothing original.
Yeah, this fits on your
Right, so you
template.
probably have the same system, a fret slotting template, comes with the pin, you insert the pin into the fence and cut a little relief cut right there so the blade can pass underneath it.
Yep.
And you do not use this blade
No.
on that. Excuse me, and just to show the folks back home. So this is what a dedicated fret slotting blade looks like. This is a specialty item that you purchase, and essentially it's got a 23/1000 of an inch kerf at the end of the blade. The center of the blade is quite a bit meatier, and that's so it's for stability.
Yeah, fold in half.
Right. It wouldn't be a very stable blade. It'd be kind of scary and dangerous if it wasn't meaty in the middle.
Yeah, I might have to borrow that idea for something.
Yeah. So what do you do then if you have the pin? Do you use a fence?
I have a manual.
Oh, I see.
The miter box.
The miter box method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have been working on, like I said, been working on this base, and hopefully getting ready to start on the actual thing. But I'm working on cutting fret slots with the CNC.
Nice.
So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that'll probably work great.
it takes longer. You know, a miter box even, you know, doesn't take all that long, 10 minutes or something like that.
Right.
And it definitely takes longer than that with the CNC. So I don't know.
You're not even saving that much time with this, but you are saving time. I won't say it takes as long as hand slotting.
Yeah.
But it's not as dramatic as you might think. So you still have to cut each slot individually.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting what the next level is. Aside from the CNC, which I don't do that, so I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's really fast and efficient. Or at the very least, it's hands off for you to a degree once you set up the machine.
Once it's going.
Anyway, when I went to visit Stu Mack, I saw that they had, they were kind of giving me a tour. They had a guy standing at a table saw with a bunch of billets at his right side, and he would just grab a billet, pass it through the saw, throw it on the pile to his left, because he had a table saw with a, what would be the word, like an axle, I guess I'll call it.
It's got a big...
With 24 individual blades
like those
on it. I can only imagine like the guy who has to like double check that machine and maintain it. Like if anything, one of those blades gets slightly loose or something.
All the shims I imagine you got to have in there.
Yeah.
But they are cool. Part of me wants to try to make one, but
really?
I don't know if I ever will. But
yeah, I wonder if Stu Mack. No, they wouldn't sell that. That'd be weird. That'd be interesting though. I wonder if you can buy that machine somewhere.
I don't know. LMI might have had one.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
I know.
Let's see what else we got here. So then this, by the way, is not the main part. We kind of started here, but this is the ugliest, messiest. Not that the shop has to look anything other than ugly, but this is where all the really rough stuff happens, and this is where I do not have a dust collection system set up. So I'm just kind of, taking it day by day in here as far as keeping the dust down, and sometimes I'm more or less successful with that. So this is an edge sander right here. This is actually, I got this from a neighbor who was having like cleaning out his own shop and having a yard sale, and I got a good price and I didn't really know what I would use it for. And I actually use it quite a bit, not for anything in particular, but just for a lot of novel situations, you know? And those come up all the time, like you're making new jigs and stuff, and you're like, well, what am I going to do here? Very useful tool, and it kind of surprised me.
Yeah. I have one. It's not an edge sander necessarily. It's more of a belt grinder, a 2x72 belt grinder that like knife makers and stuff use quite a bit. And that's why I originally made it, was because I wanted to start making knives and things. But it is amazing how many times I use that thing, probably similar to this, you know, just for stock removal on whatever it is. It's super handy. I use it more than a sander like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that a little bit more, but yeah, it surprised me how useful this actually is.
Yep. You can't have too many sanders. Kind of like clamps.
No, yeah, not really. Yeah, I agree with that. You definitely got to have spindle sander for guitar making for sure. I mean, you can survive without it, but like,
it helps.
You're barely surviving. It's not fun. Back here, I've got a home-built drum sander. I built this, I don't even know, like 13 years ago. And so it's got Velcro adhered to the drum, and then you just wrap Velcro backed sandpaper, which you can get from places like Klingspor. A lot of abrasive suppliers will sell that. And what's nice is the Velcro. This really is, I think, the best way to do it, because the Velcro gives a little bit of soft, a little bit of give,
cushion.
which you actually want. Otherwise, you're just gonna grind away that grit super fast.
Yep.
This lasts. I haven't. This is dead paper for sure. I should remove this. So it's definitely dead now, but I haven't changed this in over a year.
Really?
Yeah. So it's very dead.
I'll burn up a piece in like a day or two.
Yeah. It got burnt up. I should change it now, but it really lasted for quite a while.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. For the longest time, I've seen these in a lot of.
So I wouldn't recommend going a year on this, but I'm just to make the point that like you can probably go like 4 months probably. I mean, it depends on the level of work, of course, and the type of wood you're feeding into. If it's all softwood, and keep on rocking. Yep.
I've seen these, this style in your videos, as well as a lot of plans and things that are available. One thing that I don't know why, but for some reason, always threw me for a loop. I'm like, okay, you make the discs, and you have all these discs. I'm like, how do you make sure? I never realized that you just sand it from the bottom.
I know, it's
you just sand it from the bottom,
simple.
and there's nothing to it.
It's actually full, and it's so foolproof.
Yeah.
Like there can't be anything easier than that. So yeah, what he's talking about is you just, after you build the drum, you essentially build the drum by cutting out a whole bunch of tiny, in this case 5-inch diameter discs, and continuously gluing them together. So you end up with all these discs with little ledges everywhere. It's not quite true. And then of course you build the rest of the frame and everything in the table, and then you can just take a flat piece of plywood, anything that's flat, reliably flat, stick a large sheet of sandpaper onto it, and pass that under the drum. Essentially like you're trying to sand the piece of plywood, but actually the inverse is happening. The plywood is sanding the drum true.
Like
it's brilliant.
I really racked my brain on that for a little bit. Like, man, I would love to build one. I don't understand that process. And then it clicked, and I'm like, really?
Yeah. It's the easiest part of the whole thing. Actually, it really is.
Yep.
The hardest part, I'd say. Well, actually, before I get into that, let me just mention, because you mentioned like plans online. The plan for this specific one is, if you look up a guy named Pat Hawley, who's a ukulele maker, I think virtually everyone who is building this is using those plans. So it's based off of Pat Hawley's drum sander, but actually the guy who made the plans is a brilliant guy named Matthias Wendell.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know who he is? Yep. Yeah, he's I think millions of subscribers, YouTube, like very popular dude. Like he's just so smart, and he does such interesting work that he's got millions of subscribers for it.
Yeah. And his wooden bandsaw?
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of the videos he does are about building tools. I think I don't watch too much of him, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, and testing different things.
Yeah,
he goes super in depth on whatever it is he's trying to
super
test.
in depth. Yeah, super geeky. We were just talking about the bandsaw earlier. For people might not have a gauge of how absurd it is to build a wooden bandsaw, but if you do get into, say, resawing or if you get seriously into bandsawing, the bandsaw itself is something that you can really geek out on, and people do. There are people who basically their whole career is like, I'm the bandsaw guy. Like, that's how serious of a tool it is. So to build one out of wood is absurd, and
it's wild.
It's wild because the things you have to account for, the vibration and all of that, and you're literally building it out of wood is extremely remarkable, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
this is cool.
So I forget where we were going with this. We were just talking about.
We were just looking at it.
Yeah. We went off on Matthias Wendell there. Oh, I think I was just telling you guys where to get the plans if somebody were to be interested in building something like this. And then I think the hardest part of building it was just sourcing all the stuff, the pillow blocks and the pulleys and stuff like that. You go to like transmission shops and stuff, you find these things.
Yep.
Or an old farm store where you can get a motor, a used
Tractor
motor.
Supply or something.
Yeah. This is
that a 1 horse?
This is 2 horsepower.
Nice.
Way overpowered.
Nice. There's no such thing.
Well, you know what? I agree, because it's the kind of thing where when I first built this, I was like, this is too much. This is like scary. But I've had this for over a decade, and I'm used to. I know how to work this thing. I have zero issues with how intense that 2 horsepower motor is. You know what's really funny? I actually had what was it called? Voice of America. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. So Voice of America is actually the United States propaganda network.
Okay.
I mean that literally. I'm not being facetious when I say that. What they do is they create positive American videos. For example, the show that they were filming here is called Walk Across America, and it's like a reality TV show, or it is a reality TV show, where they go to just cool and interesting things that people in America are doing, like businesses. And in this case, it was interestingly enough, it's North Korean propaganda.
Oh, interesting.
So the U.S. trying to get positive American sentiment into North Korea simply by creating these videos where these North Koreans, so these 2 North Korean hosts came over, and of course we did the whole, they were super bubbly and everything, and pretended to walk in the door like we hadn't talked beforehand, like oh hey, shake their hands and everything, which is very awkward for me. I'm not good at doing that. Like, didn't we just do this 5 seconds
They
ago?
did it here at the shop?
They did it here at the shop. I have that on my YouTube channel. Just they let me republish it, just because it's very interesting. And they came by and I just showed them. I think I cut a bunch of bracing blanks or something like that, just to kind of show them something. Obviously, when they first called, they were like, "Hey, can you build a guitar?" Which is hilarious. But yeah, we'll just knock out the whole
hang
guitar.
out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll just pull the guitar lever and see what comes out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
I
haven't seen that one. I'll have to check it out.
I took part in propaganda. That, we were sent to the dark world of North Korea. And I say dark because it's literally they're not given access to the internet and this and that. So I don't know how they get it in there, but I guess through YouTube, and maybe some people
Local
get
TV
access
or something.
that way.
I don't know.
Yeah, because clearly the North Korean government doesn't let them view that sort of stuff. But anyway, it was very interesting. And it was funny because I kind of expected them to like pitch me weird softball questions about like being an American. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel being an American?
Yeah.
And just like, I'm not doing that. Like, but they didn't. They actually just came and acted natural, and and we then asked about what I was doing, and we, you know, I taught them things about guitar making.
Yep.
Which was cool. I didn't have to sing the national anthem or anything like that. So
that's cool. It looks like you've got a bunch of stuff set up here for maybe classes or something.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that. So these I just call my bunks because I like to have an area where shelves that are dedicated simply to organizing individual builds, because I have a lot of things going on simultaneously a lot of the time. I have the classes that I teach, for example, and these 4 guitars right here are for students. These 2 up top here are 2 guitars that I'm working on. Why don't we take a look at that? It might be interesting. So this is a Florentine cutaway Parlor, the first of its kind that I'm working on here. So a lot of, you know, prototypey kind of stuff that I have to do. And bird's eye maple,
nice. I like
very
it.
pretty.
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to be doing, you can see I've got the channels cut right now, which is actually the most fragile state that this guitar is in when you have those channels cut.
Because it's so thin?
Because the edges, especially on the softwood on the top, it's so easy to ding those edges, and then your binding work is just never going to look the same if you put a ding in those edges. So
very cool.
I'm always very careful when it's in this stage, very nervous that I'm going to bang it around. And then we got, you know, we're going to have bird's eye maple for the fretboard.
I like that.
This is all bird's eye maple guitar essentially, because then look at the neck here.
Nice.
Bird's eye maple, even the head plate, but with a nice little accent of ebony in between. I did use Honduran mahogany. You know, I use a lot of alternate woods for the necks. I use Port Orford cedar. I use, you know, I'm using the bird's eye maple here. But I have found that recently I still like to put a Honduran mahogany heel block, which is a little bit different, rather than using the same wood. I think, you know, the only barrier to that would be you might be concerned that it's going to look a little strange, but actually I think it looks kind of cool, I've noticed.
Get that contrast?
Yeah. But the primary reason why I started doing it is this, you know, we've got a neck joint to cut out here, and the neck joint is a very critical thing, and for a number of reasons, not the least of which being that this being a bolt-on mortise and tenon, we have to insert a threaded insert. Thank you. We have to insert a threaded insert into the end grain back here, and you don't want to be using, for example, I mentioned Port Orford cedar, which is a softwood that actually works exceptionally well as a guitar neck, which we could talk about if you want. But I will say I don't feel as good threading that insert into the Port Orford cedar as I do in the Honduran mahogany.
Yep.
So anyway, that's a kind of nitty-gritty detail there that, you know, you can take what you want from that. The thing I was saying about Port Orford cedar, the reason I like that for necks is, which I'll be doing a Port Orford cedar neck on this guitar over here, is that it's exceptionally light because it's a softwood, but it has about the same stability as Honduran mahogany.
Interesting.
Stability being measured as its stiffness to weight ratio. So you can get you can build a guitar that's very neck light.
Yep.
And that's
just get that dive.
Yeah, there's a nice feel to that. Some players like that. I like that. So I'm building more and more, I notice, guitars with Port Orford cedar. So this one over here, Tasmanian Blackwood. This is for a guy in Westchester, which is, you know, in this area.
Yep.
I'm building this guitar. Western Red Cedar top. These are just stickers.
Okay.
Throw those off. And we are doing the Port Orford cedar for the neck.
Okay.
Other than that, it's a pretty
cool,
bare bones guitar, I guess, in a way, because it's just an orchestra model, non-cutaway. Oh, here's the Port Orford cedar, actually, I just ordered. Yeah, it's all wrapped up because I haven't unwrapped it yet, but that's the good stuff. You can't go wrong with mahogany, though. It's really like the gold standard. Most people use mahogany.
Yep.
It just weighs a little bit more. Still pretty lightweight, though.
We have what I'm guessing by the evidence on the table that this is the bending area.
Yeah. So I always call this the side bending carousel because it kind of you go around in a circle. You only need obviously one bending machine to build guitars. That's what most people have. I don't really know anyone actually that has multiple bending machines in this way. I'm sure some people do, but I don't know them. This is just for efficiency, so I can do 2 guitars at once because each guitar has 2 sides.
Yep.
And the other thing is I teach classes, so I can have multiple students working at the same time.
These look like the exact same. What is it? The Fox. What brand is that? Fox River or something? Or?
Charles Fox, is that what you're talking about?
No, these.
Yeah, Shop Fox.
Shop Fox,
perhaps?
that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned Fox. Charles Fox designed the side bending machine. Not this particular one, but he's credited with, taking us out of the Stone Age.
This design. Yep.
And, making it a repeatable, consistent process. So, but there's a company called Shop Fox. You can get these, they're called veneer presses, I believe.
They're actually quite affordable, really. I was actually surprised with the price. I thought it was very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because these are the same ones I used on mine.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, other than that, it's just a lot of either high-quality plywood or MDF.
Yep.
If you can get it, I would recommend the high-quality plywood, even though I've used a lot of MDF here. It's just hard to get good. It's so expensive,
plywood,
and a lot of it is deteriorated in quality.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Even if you buy, supposedly, the good quality, you'll find voids and stuff in there. It's like, really?
Yeah. I mean, at best, what you're looking for is just lots of laminations.
Yep.
Instead of very few laminations, and usually that's pretty good. We have some right here just for the viewers.
Oh yeah.
These are what I use to make my jigs. It's a jig for making radial rosettes, which is kind of a modern style of rosette. The rosette is the pretty thing that goes around the sound hole. But you can see we've got like maybe 13 laminations there on a 3/4 inch wide edge compared to
5 or 6 or 8.
Yeah, like you can see here what the table's made out of is somewhat less. So that's what you're looking for in good project plywood, and it really does make a pretty significant difference in a lot of cases, depending on what you're making, of course.
Didn't you used to have these in clear? So have you moved that over to the plywood design? It used to be like a clear acrylic or something?
Oh, so yeah, there was acrylic. There is still acrylic that goes on top.
Oh, okay.
This is just the base.
Gotcha.
So I have a bunch of acrylic sheets that I'm working on right now, and those get laid right on top. It did used to be a decal, and so it looked quite a bit different. It's just basically a sticker here with this design.
Oh, okay.
But now I have actually my mother-in-law who owns an engraving business. She laser cuts these and sends these.
Nice, that's
to
awesome.
me.
Yeah, it looks nice.
And she puts the logo on there, which is really snappy. So yeah, it just looks a lot nicer that way, and it's actually a little easier for me to put together than you would think adding a big decal on there.
Yeah. Well, trying to line it up.
You're right. It's actually more difficult than it might sound to the uninitiated. So what else? What grabs your eye here?
I don't know. I guess I just got a question for you. Something that came to mind. So, like, what got you into this whole building guitars and mainly acoustics? Because from if I recall correctly, that's really all you do. Like, not electrics, nothing else. So what and when kind of got you started along this whole journey?
So I originally took a archtop guitar making class. For those who don't know, that's a jazz guitar, essentially. So you picture a guitar with the F holes in it. That's an archtop. From a guy named Dale Unger, who's in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which is where the Martin factory is, by the way.
That's what I was going to say, yep.
And that's also where that Fab Lab that I mentioned is,
too.
Fantastic workshop. So I took a class, just a 7-day class with him, and that got me started. It piqued my interest, so to speak. And before that, I was a guitar tech. I was working at a music store, so I had that experience. I didn't have any real woodworking experience beforehand. I was working on frets, making new nuts and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And after the archtop course, I didn't continue making archtops. I realized that, you know, I don't play jazz, so I transitioned to flat tops pretty much right away, and that's where I've been.
Yeah.
So I build, you know, orchestra model size guitars. I build parlors, dreadnoughts, not as much. The OMs are, OM means orchestra model. The OMs are very popular.
Yeah. So it sounds like you just kind of, after taking that first course, it sparked the interest, but you just moved it over kind of to the more acoustic side instead of the archtop.
Yeah, the archtop is acoustic.
Well,
see, I'm not talking about a
yeah.
hollow. There are jazz guitars that, you know, hollow bodies with the F holes. Dale Unger builds, you know, acoustic archtops,
Yeah.
you know, in the
Cool.
traditional sense. Yeah, it's just so much from an archtop to a regular flat top steel string
Yep.
is transferable. Would not be the case though, going say from either electric guitar to steel strings or classical guitar to steel
Yeah.
strings. There's
Yep.
a lot different with classicals, which I don't really delve into that world either.
Yeah. What I found is the big difference was because until I went through your course and had done mostly solid body electrics. So the body wise, there's really nothing that transfers. But the neck, once I got the body done and was onto the neck, it wasn't bad at all.
Right, familiar territory.
Yeah, because you've done the frets, you've done all this stuff. It's just that body for me.
It's essentially the same at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Once you get the body done.
Yep.
Yeah. To that end, I think Stu Mack I think they're making. Someone told me they're doing. I forget what the word is for it, but body built acoustics.
I heard
So
something
you
about
get a
that.
kit, but really it's the body's complete,
Yeah.
and you're attaching the neck and doing all that stuff.
Yep.
Which, yeah, obviously I'm not interested in that because I do something different, but I think it's super cool because there's a lot of people that maybe are less interested in learning all this Lutherie stuff, but really want to just like hot rod a guitar,
Get it done.
mod
Yeah.
it, you
Yeah.
know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
They
Yep.
kind of do their own thing with the neck shape or the headstock or something like that. And I don't know. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a great way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess another thing is we got to check out a guitar. Do you have one we can have a look at?
Let me think which one I want to pull out right now. This one's actually. What do I want to show off? Let's show off this one right here because I do like this one a lot. This is guitar number 85. I've got some other ones too I can pull out, I think. So this is a redwood top. It's an orchestra model. I'm sorry, it's not an orchestra model. It's a triple O. I stumbled over the orchestra model there because actually a triple O and an orchestra model essentially look the same. The body shape is the same, but on a triple O, the scale length is shorter.
So that's 24.9.
Correct. Yep. 24.9, 25.4 is an orchestra model. So you get a different feel, a different playability from having less tension on the strings on the triple O, and you also get a different tonality to it. When you have more tension on the strings with that 25.4, that OM, it's going to project more. Those strings are going to have more power, more volume, more punch to them because of that added tension. But here, go ahead and check this out. I know you're left-handed.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Is this a cedar neck?
That's Port Orford cedar. So that's what I was talking about there.
Yeah.
Zero coat back and sides. Nice little splash of sapwood
like
right
that.
on the edge there.
That's super cool. You get a book match on the end wedge.
Yep, so that's just the
It's
outside
really
last little bit of the tree showing itself. And Macassar ebony for, all the black stuff, fretboard bridge, head plate.
Yeah.
The binding as well is ebony.
That's really cool.
And then mother of pearl around the edges. And some things I do different. that are unique to me. Of course, the headstock kind of jumps out as being something different. So we get straight pull across the nut there, kind of like Paul Reed Smith also gets straight pull across the nut, as opposed to what you're used to typically seeing on a guitar, say a Martin guitar, where the strings meet the nut and then they splay out to the side to meet the tuners.
Yeah.
You might be thinking, why does that matter? I like the straight pull because it's simply one force vector against the nut, rather than having two force vectors, one pushing down and one, you're going to get this pull to the side when it has to meet the nut and then splay laterally outward.
It's pulling it in different directions.
Yeah, and so you get a little bit better anchoring, at least in theory. Things like that. I always often like to caveat that with I don't quite know. I haven't A/B tested this in a way to figure out the extent to which that affects it, but I trust the theory.
And I am of the same belief, really, that it does matter. Totally unproven by me either, but I believe that to be true.
Right. Yeah,
whether it is or not, I don't know. But I also try to do, if I can't for some reason get perfectly straight, I do try to get as straight as I can.
Right.
Like, we spent quite a bit of time redesigning headstocks for an upcoming build to try to get everything to be in a straight line.
And I would suggest that even if there's merit to the straight pull theory, it's going to be a very small return. So for someone who's maybe watching this and thinking, okay, I want to get into guitar making, and they're trying to parse out what matters and where to put their attention as far as tone is concerned, if you're interested in building a really good sounding guitar, don't focus on stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't focus on that. Focus on the top.
Yep.
The top is probably the best starting point to focus on, as far as what material you're using, how thin you're taking it, and what I think is the most important is your bracing and how you're voicing those braces and what your bracing pattern is like. That's all kind of primary in my mind.
That's really cool. That is such a cool grain in there.
Yeah, it kind of has this landscape.
It does. That's what I'm saying. Like hills and the sky and fields, and it's really cool.
This isn't the kind of stuff that I do, but I always thought somebody could. It would be cool to using inlay. Put little figures or a barn. An animal barn, village or something. that would be really fun. So somebody out there who's really good with inlay, take that and run with it, please. I'd love to see it.
That would be cool.
And some other things that are different here. This kind of swept back bridge design lines up with where the X-brace arms meet.
Oh,
so you don't have that little extra bit kind of sticking out. Everyone always asks about the extra long saddle here. Mm-hmm. And really, this is another thing. It's not a huge deal, but the reason I do this is because I can get a absolutely creaking in perfectly tight fit if I blow open one side of the saddle slot as opposed to an end-to-end. I'm not saying that no one can get a perfect fit doing an end-to-end saddle slot, but I haven't seen it, and I've taken apart a lot of guitars, and there's usually a little slop in there, or if there isn't slop, if it is truly tight, then they're not actually hitting the bottom of the slot, right? There's a gap. There's a gap somewhere.
Right.
There's almost has to be, because you have four walls and the floor. Again, if you're trying to get all those to touch at the same time, it's a really difficult task. But if you blow open one wall, it becomes basically as simple as the nut.
Right. Right. Interesting.
And then, other thing that's different with this is lattice bracing on the back. So it's an entirely different bracing pattern on the back. Probably a little hard to see through the strings.
Might be. I don't know if you can see.
So typical bracing on a guitar is ladder bracing, which you can think of as just like railroad tracks running straight across. On this guitar, it's in a sense similar design to the X brace, where you have a bunch of X's that in the end, what you get with that plate is an even distribution of thickness all across the plate, rather than, even distribution of stiffness, not thickness. Rather than with ladder bracing, you get a really stiff area at each brace, with alternating areas of looseness between the braces, which gives you less of a homogeneous pumping action, which is called monopole action, which is what you actually want on a steel string guitar to combat its inherent brightness that you get from having metallic strings. You want those plates to pump rather than flutter side to side.
Gotcha.
And you can achieve that by having even stiffness across.
Is the lattice brace your preferred method, or do you?
It is now.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I mentioned earlier that the top is where I think most of your energy should be put mentally. And I don't know what the exact ratio would be, but I like to say it's 80-20 or even 90-10.
Yep.
That's how effective your back is in the grand scheme of things. It matters, but if you don't feel confident with what you're doing with the top, I wouldn't overthink the back. A lattice braced back is more difficult to execute.
Well, yeah,
You've got some joints.
A lot more joints.
Yeah, so it takes me more time. It's fun to do. I enjoy it. You don't get as much of a return as doing work on the top, but I do think it impacts the tone at least a little bit.
And it looks cool too. It looks really neat.
It does look cool.
Yeah. And as I'm looking at yours, I'm realizing that mine are probably still so overbraced.
Oh yeah, most people are. Most plans, and rightfully so, they should. Plans. You don't want to distribute out to the general public plans of just barely good enough braces.
Yeah.
Because a part of being able to do very thin, very small braces like that is all of the pre-steps that come before even just material selection, making sure you're actually using like good, well quarter sawn, lots of rings per inch material. Rather than just some pine that your neighbor had or something like that. So
I was going to use some of that. Dang it.
I mean, you can actually.
No.
I don't want to even say that you can't use it, but like, it's hard to get a lightly braced guitar with, without that foundation of having just solid starting materials.
Yep.
Yeah, you want to see another one?
Sure, why not?
So I showed you that Parlor Guitar body earlier. This is a finished Parlor Guitar.
Nice.
With rosette. Here, we didn't even play that last one. Slightly out of tune, but it's close. So, rosewood back and sides, Honduran mahogany neck, Western red cedar top. Similar sort of design here. I'm using more standard tuners. We didn't talk about the Steinberger tuners on that last one, but it's a very non-standard thing. So here, check this one out.
I like that smaller. It's like really small. I don't know if I've ever actually.
It's really small,
played a Parlor.
Which is why I built them. I mean, it's going to make the guitar sound bad to say this, but I wanted to build something that is more fun, more like a toy.
Yep.
Now it's not built, I do all the voicing and stuff. I take the time just like I do with the bigger guitars. So when I say more like a toy,
it's not a toy.
I wanted to make something that was so small that you could place it like right next to your couch. And it's funny, literally when I get up from the couch, so I keep one of these at home, I use the guitar to push up from the couch because it's just the right size. So it's a great like travel guitar, and for its size, it sounds really good. And now I say for its size because anytime you build an exceptionally small bodied guitar like this, it's going to sound brighter. It's going to have less projection, less volume than, say, an orchestra model or something like that.
Mahogany.
So those are the trade-offs. So yes, that's Honduran mahogany. Yeah, the last show I took these to John Hall, who's a well-known builder, called this guitar the Alabama Screamer.
Yeah.
Because it's a feisty little thing, and it's great for it really punches. Like the certain guitars, like an orchestra model, they have more richness in the notes. So a lot of the overtones that you hear when you strum kind of hang around and blend in with the other notes as you're playing. Whereas this, it's almost more like a jazz guitar because the notes have a shorter envelope of attack where the note punches out at you and then it decays.
Yeah.
Punches out at you and it decays. Hence the Alabama Screamer.
Nice.
Which I really like that name that you came up
Yeah,
with.
that's cool.
I might have to use that.
Do you name your guitars at all?
That one I have lovingly named guitar number 87.
I know
that's
some
what I
people
do.
will actually give them a name of some sort.
Yeah. No, I just number them.
Yeah. Very cool.
How many years have you been building guitars?
So I started in 2010. So we're in 20, almost 25. So 14 and a half years. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah. and it's not over yet.
And it's not over yet, hopefully. That's awesome.
So if anybody was trying to get a hold of you, wants to do a class, a course, something like
Yeah.
that, what?
Biggest thing is my website, ericschaeferguitars.com. Or if you just want to see what I'm doing and learn a thing or two, you can check out my YouTube channel, DIY Guitar Making. Those videos are also hosted on ericschaeferguitars.com though. So if you subscribe to the email list there, you'll get all the videos and the podcasts, because I podcast as well, in your inbox. I also sell an online course. I teach hands-on workshops. I'm now resawing and selling wood like we talked about in the beginning. So if you want a good price on back and side sets, I do that as well. And I sell the radial rosette maker jig, which we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Yep.
So ericschaeferguitars.com.
Right on. Man, thanks a lot so much.
Yeah, this was great.
For meeting up. I really appreciate you giving us the tour and getting to meet you and hang out a little bit. So.
Let's do it again, man.
Right
This
on.
was great.
Go check out Eric's stuff. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.